The Cold War was actually about liquidity more than ideologies, and that's why it cannot truly be considered over. Its name today is globalization, but the strategy of the game is the same, only the actors have changed. Back then, the curtain was made of iron. Today, its name is the digital age. And behind all these events, the same thing still holds true. Power is not in flags, it is in flows. If what I've explained gave you a new perspective, make sure to check out the other videos as well. There's a lot there that will surprise you. Subscribe. Let's uncover the hidden details of history together. To see how this system actually began, it is enough for us to travel back to a time before our world operated with numbers within a civilization, that is, to the past. In medieval Europe, money consisted of gold and silver. A person's wealth was understood by the abundance of gold or silver coins or jewels in a chest. However, carrying bags full of gold was quite dangerous in terms of security. Therefore, people who had a lot of gold would entrust it to jewelers they trusted. The jewelers who received the entrusted gold would write the number of gold pieces kept in custody on a receipt-like piece of paper and give it to the people. It occurred to them that the receipts taken from the jeweler could be used in trade exchanges. After all, these receipts had also become valuable documents. Moreover, they were both light and safe to carry. This is exactly where the banking system began. The jewelers noticed something. If they had 100 customers with deposits, only 1 or 2 people came each day to make a withdrawal. Therefore, most of the gold never left the shelves and the receipts entered the market as the operating system. Actually, the issue of fake money also began in this system. How? Let me explain immediately. While the clever jewelers had 1,000 gold coins in their vaults, they began printing 2,000 receipts. In this way, they started earning more gold than what actually existed. They could lend these extra receipts with interest and make a profit from gold that did not exist. Since people would not all demand their gold at the same time, no one would notice this situation. The unbacked gold brought borrowing to the forefront. This was not actually a sector, but a revolution. People accepted the receipts as valuable. Gold and silver investment was freed from physical reality. The jewelers who realized this system had actually discovered the banking system. And this is exactly how banking began. By the 17th century, governments had also adopted the banking system. The Bank of England, in the year 1694, was a system established not to serve the public, but to solve a problem. Because it was drowning in debt due to long-lasting and never-ending wars. Actually, what I am about to explain now is exactly the same system from past years as the one we have today. When the government's debts and interest to the bank were calculated at that time, they were far greater than the reserves in the vault. So, whose pocket did it come out of, you may ask? Yes, of course, from the people's pockets. When it came time to pay the debt, instead of paying with the spoils won from wars, they made the people indebted by collecting taxes and even calculating the taxes that future generations would pay. Long-term debts also made future generations uneasy. In the United States, the system was actually the same. The first American banks also issued banknotes that could be redeemed for their value, but they too quickly realized, just like the early jewelers, that they could print more banknotes than the amount of gold they had in their vaults. After a while, bank robberies began to increase. When depositors heard about this, they started to feel uneasy. And after the last major robbery, when almost all depositors demanded their funds from the bank at the same time, they realized that more banknotes had been printed than the amount of gold in the bank. That day became the collapse day for all banks. Although it was expected that governments would oppose this system, this was not the case at all. Instead of shutting down the banking system, they put forward the idea of establishing a central bank, and soon, governments founded their central banks. The message here was very clear: to create the perception that it was guaranteed by the government and to implement the policy of convincing the public, even if there was no real backing in the banks. Now let's explain this topic in today's terms, because the system we call fractional banking is not as understandable or as familiar as we use it daily, since the system has only adopted technological additions from the past to the present. Unfortunately, the system has not changed. Trusting the system knowingly no longer sets you free. Creating real wealth highlights that, in addition to financial power, turning towards physical investments will be the right choice. If the money you believe is yours is actually in your debt column, then your freedom is restricted until the day that debt is paid off. Even though the timeline may vary, when you look at the past, today's system is essentially the same. For example, the goldsmiths of medieval Europe that I mentioned at the very beginning, or the banking panics of the 19th century, they are all reflections of the same stories. In fact, the reason this system has survived to this day is because people have continued to use deposits left in banks, or borrowed money without questioning whether it was actually backed by anything. This story is not over. In the times we live in, we often witness governments facing financial crises, or banks in various countries being shut down overnight and declared bankrupt, as reported in the media. But who actually suffers the losses when these banks collapse? The depositors in those countries. As for us, we simply watch the news and move on. This is exactly the point where I want to raise your awareness. Investing your savings not in a system that hasn't changed for decades, but in land, an asset that has even become a form of long-term investment, will make you truly happy in the years to come. You will eventually understand how much more powerful your money becomes when placed into the right kind of investment. So the next time you check your bank accounts, try not to forget this. Most of it is simply a cycle of debt made up of paper money. If you understand the point we're trying to highlight, you can choose to keep yourself outside of this system. The house always wins. Don't be just another player. If this video has given you a new perspective, don't forget to subscribe. Leave your questions in the comments. They inspire us. Thank you in advance for your support.